If you've ever thought to yourself, I'd rather just read about this than actually do it, you're not alone. The Enneagram 5 newsletter exists to help you move from knowing to experiencing. Every Saturday, you'll get insights designed to help fives grow without overwhelm. Sign up for free today at enneagram5.com/newsletter or visit the link in the description. Now on to the show.
Melissa,
Sam.
what is the most type 5 moment you've ever had as a mother?
I think right now, my preteens who are trolling me about people in the family getting hurt because I'm a self-pres 5 and they've picked up on my tendency to ask about things more than people. So they'll be like, Mom, I hit my head on the shelf. And then the other one will be like, oh no, is this shelf okay?
Clearly, they know you love them, but I would imagine you've also been doing that for their whole lives, hence the joke.
I make sure people are okay, but then I do care about the shelf, and or windshield and or whatever. So it's a both. It's a both and. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited we're doing this episode together. I guess we should introduce ourselves to the people. I'm Sam. Some people know me because I've been on before. I'm a sexuality researcher and Enneagram and sexuality coach. And I'm super happy to be here with my friend Melissa. Melissa, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Melissa. I am an Enneagram and life coach. And I run my social media, which is enneagrampaths.com, and all things healing, moving forward, finding new interesting things to talk about.
And this is an Enneagram 5 lady takeover of the Enneagram 5 podcast.
Yes.
We kicked out the dudes. It's all ladies today.
I think it's about time, right?
Yeah. So we're here talking about motherhood, but also, what it's like to be an Enneagram 5 woman as a mother and a bunch of other things, whatever we feel like talking about. Where should we start? We have lots of questions for each other.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if everybody knows, but Sam and I ask each other questions a lot. We send each other voice texts and are like, I have a question. So this is just an extension of what we do all the time and pick each other's brains. But now we're going to kind of focus on motherhood and being a female 5. And do you want to start first and ask questions of me, or do you want me to ask?
I can start. And also, these are things we talk about normally. So it's almost as if people just have an inside window into our phones, voice messages, because I'd say the biggest things we talk about are, like Enneagram generally, because we're both Enneagram professionals, but then motherhood would be almost maybe a second biggest, and then just what it's like to be a female 5 is probably also the second biggest. So just window into our mind.
God.
So, Melissa, what challenges do you think type 5 mothers face in particular?
I think a lot.
Yes.
So many. I think first and foremost, just what motherhood, the word, means, and it's different with each society and culture, right? And so in our Western kind of culture, what motherhood means for women is this sort of nurturing, loving, always there, but also works right now and at this space and time, right? Also has a job and also has a home and also takes care of things and is emotionally intelligent while also getting absolutely everything done. And even that description makes me feel overwhelmed as a 5. And I think as a woman and as a mother, it's been really difficult to mesh my kind of mothering in with the way that lots of other people mother. I feel like I look different and feel different and respond differently and talk differently than everybody else. And it can be isolating to feel that alien, if you will, especially, you know, when you're doing such an important job that you care so much about, like raising kids and being there for them. So, yeah, I think the emotionality piece is a challenge, right? If mothers are the nurturing figure, what does that look like as a 5 mom, right? That is a challenge because, I mean, every 5 woman is different, but I have had to figure out what it means for me to be emotionally available to my kids when I can, when I can't, how I express emotions because I want to teach them about having emotions and talking about them and somatically experiencing them. And I don't fit the mold, but I think I do a pretty darn good job. So that's like the first thing, I think. I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
So much sense. I feel the same way, of course. I basically, until I started talking to you and then also to my friend and colleague, Lindsay Frazier, who's a 9, I thought that I was the only person. I mean, I didn't really think that, but some part of me felt like I was the only person who's this kind of mother, like the kind you're sort of describing. And it is really lonely and really isolating. I'm curious because you said my kind of motherhood doesn't mesh with the enculturated ideal of what motherhood is supposed to mean. And you started talking about it, but what is your kind of motherhood? What does your brand of motherhood look like, and how is it different?
Well, I'm a nerd and I'm weird and I love that about myself. I think it was really, it's like, do you know how it's like you expect something, but then when it happens, it's still surprising? So I expected that, especially when my kids were little, that it would be challenging to be a mom, that it would be an overwhelming, like, sensory experience. They'd be all over me. It would be constant demands and needs. I expected that, but I didn't know how much it would impact my need to think and to, not that you don't have to think around kids. I'm not trying to say like if motherhood is your highest calling, that like it's not intellectual, because it so is. It just wasn't for me. I loved the littles phase, but it was also a space where I had to figure out how to work freelance jobs and do writing and have other stimulation for my mind, because diapers and food and messes and tantrums and screaming and laundry, like it was just, for me, it didn't feel on brand for what I was supposed to love. And I loved pieces and parts of it, but I just had to find, again, like my own way of doing it and then be at peace with that, like not judge myself for needing to work at least part-time when I had littles. And then as they've gotten older, that's gotten easier because they go to school and all of that stuff now. But that's, I think, one of the biggest things is the intellectual stimulation.
I love that you said it didn't feel on brand, like for you or what you were supposed to love or the kinds of things you loved. I know you have questions for me too, but I could just interview you for hours because we should probably say I have younger kids than you do. My oldest is 5, and my youngest is 1. And yours are 11 and 12, is that right?
12 and 13.
Oh, 12 and 13. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I feel like I really look up to you as a mother because
you should not do that.
You've, well, in the sense of like not modeling myself after you, but in the sense that you've come further along the journey and figured a bunch of things out that I'm just figuring out. So it's like very fascinating and rewarding to talk to you about this.
Well, I'll do the best I can. We're just at different phases. I know how it feels to talk to parents that have like older teens and young adults, and that feels like, okay, helps me ground and kind of figure out what might be coming next. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yes. I feel like I haven't heard enough people or any people really say what you've just said, which is, I didn't like love every aspect of it, or not every aspect was a good fit for something that I would love. And just the more moms and parents who say stuff like that, the less people are going to shame themselves. But I haven't heard that narrative out there much, and I feel like I really needed it.
I think I still need it. Like, it's a little example of that is like my kids, I have insomnia and always have. And so they learned real fast to go to dad when they would wake up in the middle of the night. And that's still the case. And it's like so countercultural. Of course you go to the mom, but like they go to dad, and I have to like actively be like, that's okay. It's all right. Like, it's fine. We each take the things that we're good at and not good at and trade it off. And I don't have to be the quintessential mother in every aspect. It's okay to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
I love that. An example of that for me is that I'm self-preservation blind, and I do not cook. Like, I could cook a few things, but I really don't know how to cook. And my husband cooks in grocery shops. And so anytime people are talking about good meals, or my kids are like, Daddy made us a really good dinner, and that is, again, it shouldn't be countercultural, but it is a little bit.
Yeah.
And just being okay with that.
And I love that you said that, because I don't like cooking either. I just am better at it than my husband. But I do not enjoy that dinner happens every day. So I feel you.
Yeah. And the days, once in a while I do cook dinner, and the days that I do, I'm so much more frazzled. Like I'm learning this about myself now, but preparing ahead is much better for me. So, for example, putting like stuff in the crock pot in the morning I can handle, but the whole coming home from school, like after school activities, chaos. Now cook dinner, clean up dinner. Like I just end up miserable, overwhelmed, sensory overload, and yelling. And like my husband's better at cooking, and he's an 8, so he does not get overwhelmed as much. And it just makes sense for him to cook, obviously. But, if I think too hard about it, I can get into shame and guilt. Shame and guilt has been a big part of my motherhood journey, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that exact same thing, except take out the 8 husband and put in that I am doing all of that, but that like I have an assertive type. My husband's a type 3, and 2 assertive at the moment, we think, kids. And they are all up in my business, and I cannot multitask, and I would get so frazzled and so upset. So they have literally learned, and I'm like, now I'm just blunt about it. I'll just be like, go away, walk away. I had to over and over state boundaries. If this needs to happen and I'm doing it, like, leave me alone. You don't get to come into the dinner table until it's really actually ready. And when I have to clean up all that stuff, all of you exit. My husband does all the ironing, all of the prep, like for outfits for the next day. Like they know to like, don't talk to me until, and I felt a lot of guilt and shame about that too. And I had to like work through not feeling that way and being like, no, we just need to accept. But yeah, I think going back to your question, that is part of like the challenge of being a type 5 mom is the awareness of what other people are doing and how, like, air quotes, it's supposed to be done. And that awareness can actually cause, I feel like, extra guilt and shame because we can't turn off our observational skills of both what's happening with other people and then what we're doing. And I feel like it creates just like an added layer.
I hope this episode helps other people besides just me. And that is so helpful what you just said about making everyone leave. Because my 5-year-old's just getting old enough that I can start to set those type of boundaries. My 3-year-old sort of sometimes can follow them, and obviously my 1-year-old can't. But where I started to say, like, if I'm cooking, I'll be like, I'm cooking, you need to go play. And last night I was cooking, they got in a fight. My 2 oldest got in a fight, and I put them in timeout in different rooms, and it was silent. And I was like, oh, wow, now I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is great advice.
Well, learned by trial of fire.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we're talking a lot about being different and kind of not exactly deficiencies, but just like different ways of being. But like conversely, what do you think the unique positive qualities are that type 5 mothers bring to the table?
I think the ability to truly listen in a neutral yet extremely loving way. I feel like 5 moms have the unique superpower of really desiring their children to have space to become who they are, and possibly less than other types wanting to put expectations onto them about who they should be. So I feel like the ability to listen to your children gives you information about who they are and who they're becoming and developing into. And when it's taken in with neutrality and care, then you can reflect back to them what they need, right? Like you can create a space or even if it's something about sensory for them or foods they like or sports they want to do or not do, or even just what they need in like an emotional interaction, listening intently really helps that relationship thrive. I also think especially my son is adopted. So that just comes with it tons of deep, hard conversations that we've been having since he was little. And I have noticed, my husband is a 3, that not that he's not good at tons of things, because he is, obviously he's a 3. I'm really good at hard conversations. I am really good at paying attention to energy, at noticing when is the right time to insert in, when is the right time to leave it be for a while. And I'm really good at saying the hard things in a loving way and knowing what is age appropriate and how to word things, not even in a premeditated way, actually in that kind of like almost move to 8, that 5-8 like gut flow. I think 5 moms are really gifted at that. I know you have little ones, but I can pick up moments of that even when they were little. So I don't know if you've experienced that as well.
I have, and actually recently, my 3-year-old, who's my most introverted of the 3 and the most sensitive, I think, was kind of just saying things in passing about how she felt. And she's a middle child. She's the quietest. Like she gets looked over a lot. Mm-hmm. And I don't overlook her ever. Like when she speaks and everyone else is speaking louder so no one hears her, I hear her.
That makes me so emotional. Like,
me too.
Like, oh my gosh. Like, heck yeah. That's what it means to be a 5 mom, right? Like seeing our children. And
I never would have thought of this if you hadn't brought it up. But now that you brought it up, I realize that I'd do that.
I wouldn't have brought it up if you hadn't asked the question, so.
Being a 5 mom was both the most rewarding and the most challenging thing that I have ever had to understand. I only later on in my life went through the whole Enneagram process, and once I figured out which number I am, went down a wormhole of, as we do, of research and podcasts and videos, etc. And I truly wish that I did this earlier on in my life, not only to have had a slightly less traumatic childhood, but knowing what I know now about how I am put together would certainly have made the first part of motherhood very different. But there is certainly nothing in the world that will force you out of your head more than being a mom. I am not only a mom, I'm also a single mom, which adds a whole nother element of never really being able to take too long as a 5 in terms of pausing. Now that she's older, it's a lot easier, and I can obviously communicate and try and have her understand as much as I understand of my own complicated personality and emotions. But yeah, the take back or the take out for me would be, I really, really wish that I knew this earlier, and could and would probably do things slightly differently in motherhood, and just in the journey of single motherhood specifically.
So something that surprised me as a 5 mom was being so maternal, because I did not grow up with like little siblings or little cousins or little people. Like the first time I changed a diaper was when my first son was born, and I just didn't know what I was doing, but I felt that connection eventually. And something that I think that people might not fully understand as me being a 5 mom is my capacity with time, because I have a hard time navigating time with kids, time for myself, time with my husband, etc. And also I feel weird like taking them in public sometimes, because I don't like extra attention drawn to us or me for some reason. So it's weird for me to take my kids out in public. Like, it makes me nervous.
This is a really hard question for me, this one about like the unique positive qualities, because I spent so much of my children's early years just feeling like a total failure, and like, I'm like the worst mom in the world. I have a lot of issues with rage, basically the thing that 5s tend not to experience until they're put in a situation where they can't escape it, which parenthood is a perfect situation like that. And then our sensory sensitivities and stuff getting overloaded, and then we'll kind of like lash out. That's something like a lesser known quality of 5s, because once again, like, we avoid interaction to getting to that point, usually if we can. So people often don't see that, but people will see it with their 5 children. Like parents I've talked to have type 5 children, with the 5 child will freak out and yell, and once in a while it just builds up, and then you spill over. And I had that happening a lot, and yelling, still do. So anyway, I spent a lot of time thinking about my negative qualities. But because we were doing this episode, I put a little thought into it. And I want to share 3 more, actually. One is that it goes along with what you said about listening, but remembering. Generally speaking, 5s have an excellent memory. Of course, we have mom brain now, so that doesn't help. But I know which kid likes broccoli and which doesn't, which one likes lasagna and which doesn't. Every single thing like that, I track it. I also have a stepdaughter who's older. I track everything that's going on with her. And, my husband, her own father's like, what's your major again? She's in college, and I'm like, it's this and this. Like, what's wrong with you? I remember everything about them. And, that's one of 5's love languages, is to remember things about people.
I'm so glad you said that. So true.
Yeah. They can grow up, with that, reminding them that we care about them. So I think memory is one of the positive things that we bring, and that goes right hand in hand with what you shared about listening.
I totally agree, and would also just like to say that, like, in my kids' younger years, and even I have assertive children, and so it gets to that point at certain where it's just like, try to be chill, and then the rage comes out. And I had to, when I had littles, also work through that and figure that out, and spend a lot of time being negative about myself until I went to therapy. I learned about Enneagram and all this stuff. And so the facts helped me make sense of my emotions, which, surprise, surprise. But Yeah. So just want to say that right there with you, with having to work through that, I guess, lesser known talked about thing about fives, that we really try to keep it chill, and then sometimes it builds to we can't, just like any other person in the whole entire world, right? Like, we're just humans. And that, yeah, thanks for saying that about memory. I don't think I would have clocked that had you not said it, but you're totally right. Like, and that's how not just my children, my friends, I remember everything they tell me. Like, I forget a lot of other things, but like when it comes to like my relationships, I remember. And that's so important for kids. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That was cool.
Yeah, that's one. Another one I thought about is our enthusiasm for learning and our curiosity. So as, my oldest is learning to read now, and I'm genuinely so excited about it. Like, every time we sit down to do a reading lesson, like, I'm so enthusiastic and positive. And I think a lot of people don't have patience for that kind of thing. But when it comes to learning, I think fives are really great mothers and parents.
I agree. No notes. Perfection.
And then the other one I was thinking about, which is really interesting because it kind of goes against something you said, but also goes with it, which is our sort of anti-authoritarian, like, just uniqueness. I really don't care what other families are doing, like what other kids are doing. If my kid wants to dress herself like in a like wacky, I support that. If they want, like, it's different. I mean, it goes with what you said about guilt. Like, I do feel the guilt from enculturation about what mothers are supposed to be. So that's why this is kind of an interesting dichotomy. But I don't feel the need to do the parenting trends. For example, I co-slept with all three of my kids when they were babies, even though that's sort of coming into vogue now. But when my oldest was born, it was like still super controversial. I dug into the research really deeply on that, and the scientific consensus is actually slightly in favor of it. It's more like neutral. It's actually not as negative as people think. But the public health messaging was against it at the time. I don't know if it is anymore. But I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is what feels right to me and my baby. This is what I'm doing. I did my own research. And I'm like that about everything. Anything that's right for them, I don't care if other people think it's wrong or weird. If, I've done my research and my gut says it's right, I'll do it. And I think that's something unique that five moms bring.
I agree. I think I have a different added layer, not extra, just a different flavor, because my son, who is adopted, is Black. And so I have had to pay attention more than I normally am wired to in any way, shape, or form about stuff like that because of safety. Just paying attention to how people are treating him, what's going on in terms of racism, unfortunately. And so that is there. But but it's like the dichotomy. It's like what you said. At the exact same time, I don't care that both of my kids have experimented with clothing, have experimented with their hair. If somebody says this is like the right way to do something, I will research it. And maybe I'll feel guilt and shame if I don't do it. But am I going to do something that in my gut I don't feel is like logically right for myself or my kids? Like, I'm 100% not. I'm going to do what I think is right, like a little rebel. And that's hard for my 3 husband.
I would think so.
So hard. The amount of times he's been like, well, so-and-so. And I'll be like, I do not care about what so-and-so does. That is so-and-so's life. This is our life, right? Like, so it is a weird push and pull energy that I wonder if 5 fathers notice that same thing, or if it's just 5 mothers. That would be interesting to me.
Ooh, that might be a good transition into that topic.
Okay.
I wanted to say one thing about what you shared, which is in our private conversations about, for example, like your son's school journey, like finding the right school for him. Like, my experience of you is that you like do not care what other people say is right, how far away the school is, like how you have to get him in the right school. It's like, it's about what's right for him. And I think I really admire that. I think that is a good example of this.
Thank you. That was a struggle and is still continuing to be a struggle and a place of tension of trying to figure that out. And also, to be honest, like what's right for me? What can I handle in terms of how far away a school is? It kind of has to be right for the whole ecosystem of the family. And that gets really overwhelming, to be honest, because I have 2 children. You have 3 children, right? The dynamics between both parents working and then kids and what they need, and they're different. My brain is endlessly problem solving that.
I would think, yeah.
I would think you too. Could we transition into me asking you a question or two?
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to go into since it's kind of a natural movement when we're talking about the moms versus the dads, like what do you think do you think there's a difference being a 5 mom versus being a 5 dad and the societal expectations that go along with that?
Yes, definitely. And I've actually done an episode with Josiah and Cody in the early seasons on parenthood, but we still wanted to do this one because I think it's that different. You know, Josiah is a 5 dad. He has 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that comes to mind, and my own dad is a 5 dad. The first thing that comes to mind is that the 5 dads I've encountered, and I know quite a few, there's a lot more hands-offness that can happen, that is enabled to happen by, you name it, the fact that moms are usually the default parent for multiple reasons. Patriarchy in general, enculturation around male and female roles in general. Whatever the reason, 5 dads can get a lot more space. They can do a lot more like their own projects, their own thing a lot earlier in parenthood. And 5 moms just don't have that option as much in my experience. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then I also don't see 5 fathers grappling with the things that we're talking about what's a dad supposed to be like, and I'm not like that. You know, what does that say about me? Because society's a lot easier on fathers than on mothers in general.
How does that or this awareness of that differentiation make you feel as a 5 mother?
I don't know if I thought about it too much except for when we started prepping for this episode. I get it. I get why it's happening. I don't hold anything against, 5 fathers and the space that they get compared to me. But I just wish I had more resources to have learned how to do my life as a mom, as a female 5, as a mom. I wish I had like conversations like this, resources like this that were saying, it's okay to be like you are. Of course, you're probably the default parent. Here's what that's going to feel like. Here's what's probably going to bring up for you. Here's how you can deal with those things. And like, you have to carve out space, even though your baby cries a lot when you drop her off with the babysitter, because if you don't get the space, your mental health will suffer and your children will suffer. Like all of that messaging, I think 5 moms need, and 5 dads usually don't need it because I think they are getting the space.
Like it's kind of baked in. It's kind of baked into the system where I don't feel like 5 women and moms, like you said, have the resources to know to advocate. Even the whole default parent thing, I have had to advocate in my marriage for a shared default. It kind of happened that way naturally. And as I was really in it, like all day, every day, I kind of had to be like, this is not sustainable. I am not okay. And I'm not going to be the default parent. We need to be co-default parents, which means like figuring out our own personal ebb and flow and I think once my husband, he's not like a traditional guy in any way, shape, or form. So he wasn't like placing these expectations on me. It was kind of just like again, like baked into both of our like subconsciousness. And then once we started talking about it and like we could see evidence of how much the family was better and I was happier, and then therefore he's a 3. So if we're all succeeding, he's succeeding, right? So then he's happier. That like divvying up some of the default parent responsibilities and or expectations consciously and with intent helped so much. But that was a long, messy process that was kind of isolating and lonely because like you said, there's just not a lot of out there of female 5s talking about being a female 5 and also what it means to be a mom in this day and age.
Until now.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Tell me about the publicness, the being observedness of being a 5 mom and having kids. And I am right there with you. You would think with, well, maybe it's completely expected with a teen and a preteen. There are plenty of public meltdowns, misbehaviors, emergencies. Tell me what it's like for you when stuff like that happens as a mom. What's going on inside and how do you deal?
Oh my God. There's nothing worse. So I can handle, what I've noticed is that I can handle most things that are going on privately, like that are going on in my own house, my own yard. As long as I've had enough sleep that night, I'm relatively not in crisis in terms of my own needs. I can basically handle anything that goes on. Everyone crying at once, no problem. Everyone, like multiple kids throwing up at once, whatever. As soon as the most minor thing happens in public and I feel like I'm being watched, the internal experience would be like scramble, the TV scramble, like complete just buzz. Like I can't function. It's panic, it's overwhelm, it's like this like emergency feeling, even if it's not an emergency, which it almost never is. It's when I act the worst towards my kids, telling them to stop crying and all the stuff that you're not supposed to do. And then I know you're not supposed to do. I act really badly when I feel like I'm exposed in public. And in fact, my most type 5 moment as a mother is when my son was 3 and he fell at school when we were like at a school event. Everyone was about to leave. He fell on the brick wall and like bashed his mouth and was bleeding everywhere. And some people who hadn't left yet like came over to help me, and I told them to leave. Like I was like, no, we're fine. Go, no, we're all good. But like meanwhile, he's like gushing blood out of his mouth. And I like had this feeling like I won't be safe until I'm alone. And it goes so deep. Now, he wasn't in legitimate danger. If he was in legitimate danger, like hopefully my instincts would have kicked in and accepted help. He was just mouths bleed a lot and he was crying. But I had this feeling that goes so deep that's like if other people are here, I'm not safe. Like I can only handle it in private. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I have a follow-up question. Does that sensation happen in a linear, like you hear those words, or is it more of a visceral, somatic experience that only kind of comes out? Because I know how I experience it is like, it's like I go offline and I can only say the words that will get the people away from me as fast as possible. And then only after everything has happened, after everybody's safe, am I able to be as articulate as you and say, I don't feel safe, and say all the reasons why.
Yes, exactly the same thing as you said. It's
okay.
not, I have no idea what's going on in the moment. It's just panic, like red lights flashing, like
Same.
Just totally non-functional. And then after everyone's left, I was like, oh, that was very avoidantly attached of me. Actually, I think I told that same story when we did the attachment episode on this podcast. Because it's a avoidant attachment style that's like, I'm hurt. Everyone needs to get away from me. But no, I have no concept, no witness, no maturity until after like the nervous system has calmed, same as you.
do you do what I do, which then I try to prepare myself for, like, I will notice patterns. I will use my 5-ness of observation and patterns to try to predict when meltdowns or behavioral problems will happen. And I will run through in my head what I could possibly say, what is my job to do, so that I don't have that moment of shutdown and like static happen, because I'm just a terrible, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like I become a not me version of me and I panic. And so, yeah, do you prepare at all?
I think it's a lot harder to do that with really young kids.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
They're not
It's in the
exhibiting
moment.
patterns.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm starting to a little bit. And one of the things I do that is it's terrible parenting is my 3-year-old, the one I was describing earlier, is more introverted, but she has a really loud, high-pitched, piercing scream when she screams. One of the things I do is just give in immediately to whatever she wants. If I'm in, like, I don't do that all the time as a matter of course, but if I'm in the kind of situation where I know I'm about to start that panic thing, if she continues screaming and the thing that she wants is like semi-reasonable, I'll just give it to her. No, I know I've read the books. I know you're not supposed to do that. I know that's terrible.
I'm going to say the opposite. I think that's exactly what you should do. I think that's protecting everybody's sensory and auditory and nervous systems. And I once had a social worker, because my son was adopted through foster care, and he was a runner when he was like little, and I had a baby in like one of the big heavy carriers, and then a little runner toddler. And you're not supposed to bribe children, right? That's in the book. And so he was still foster care when they were little. And I was telling the social worker about this problem. And I was like, what do I do? I have to like pick a child. One's running. Do I drop the one and leave the baby and try to make sure he doesn't go on the road? And she was like, well, what does he like to eat? And I was like, fruit snacks. She was like, what you do is you have a fruit snack in your pocket at all times. And you just be like, hey, stay near here next to me, and give him a fruit snack. And like, I was like, how much fruit snacks? She was like, as much fruit snacks as it takes. I was like, but you're not supposed to bribe children. And she was like, we prefer calling it positive reinforcement.
Oh my God.
So what I think you're doing is you're protecting everybody's sensory experience.
Thank you for the reframe.
You're welcome.
Before I had my own kids, I wasn't even sure I ever wanted to be a mom. It was pretty obvious. Once I did start having kids, those little 5 things that would come out, I just really didn't want to share. It was my food, my plate, my straw. I would give them their food and their plate and their straw, but I wasn't really one of those people that just gathered my arms around them and said, here, have some of mine. I really enjoy being a mom. 2 of mine are adults now, and I've got one last one that I'm getting out of the house. What I love is that I had 3 curious little beings, and if I wanted to dig into a topic with excitement, they wanted to dig into the topic with excitement. You know, they asked why all the time. Why is my favorite word. Why is in my mouth all the time. And children are just so curious, and they just want to learn and want to investigate. I just love that about them, about little people in general. I really wish people understood that just because I'm not a helicopter mom, micromanaging everything, that doesn't mean I don't love my kids just as much as they do. And that was really difficult. I wasn't necessarily a room mom or there for all the parties, because that was their space and their friends in their school. And I would support them in whatever ways that they wanted, but it didn't seem that they really wanted me hovering over them. And that's the last thing I would have wanted. I think probably one of my favorite things about being a 5 and being a parent is understanding autonomy and giving that gift to my kids as well.
Let's talk about harm reduction for a second. So, of course, obviously, you don't want to give in to tantruming toddler because it creates entitlement and anxiety. But, if I'm not doing that all the time, it's like 1 time out of 10 that it's, this public moment where I'm going to freak out. And it saves me from going into basically a panic attack, like a panic state where I'm a terrible mother to all 3 of them. I think the least harmful option is probably what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think that's the best case scenario for all involved. And then, as they get older, the scenarios become more complex. And then they're more interactive with it, right? They have their own voice and will. And I would love to say that gets easier, but it doesn't. It's almost like I've had to confront ego death a lot.
Ooh.
Especially with preteens, I'm going to look stupid right now. These kids are not behaving, and there really isn't a way to make them behave that's developmentally appropriate, that they're pushing back in public spaces because they don't care, because all the hormones are flooding their body. And I just have to take a deep breath and be like, yep, I look like a bad mom, and that's okay. Everybody wants to judge me. Fine. What actually is funny is when those moments happen, it seems like the universe brings other parents into my orbit, in public spaces. I've had my kids where we were on a hike, and both kids were just being just very vocal about not wanting to be there in a very public trail. And this couple came towards us up the hill, and they were like, "How you doing?" And I was very sarcastically, I was like, "I'm not." I was like, "So great. We're doing so great. The teens are loving this." And they were like, "Actually, we have teens as well, so it's all right. We get it. Carry on." And it was so to just be honest about the realness of you're doing the best you can. I think instead of being isolating can be more connecting, but it's hard to do as a 5. It's hard to let that in.
That makes me think about the sort of community aspects of parenthood, because you brought that in, leaning on other people for parenting, and how being a 5 woman supports that or hinders that. And, that's a whole other aspect of being a 5 in general, and of being a 5 woman, and of being a 5 mom. What do you think about that?
What do I think about community?
Yeah. What has your experience been with community as a mom?
I think right now there's a lot of different subsets of the correct, air quotes, the correct way to mother or parent, right? And within those, I find, and maybe this is just me having a brain that sees the bigger picture, or the 30,000 feet kind of a thing, that within those subsets, people can be really righteous about this is the correct way to do it. And that, I find it neutral, meaning if you're in that community and that resonates with what your family needs and your children need, then great. Find your people, find that community, and stay in that lane with all the love and generosity in the world, right? It's when the communities kind of cross paths and they kind of get antagonistic towards each other, or this way is right versus this way is right, is when I, as a 5 female who has a brain that can hold space for lots of things being true and having nuance and complexity, that it short circuits. So that's made it a little bit harder for me to find my community. And what I've found, I think, for me is to not ascribe to a certain kind of parenting, but to really find other parents, male and female, that feel safe, that I can be honest with, that my husband can be honest with, that we can talk about challenges with. Sometimes that's with having kids the same age, and sometimes, like you and I, who don't have kids the same age, but we're wired the same way. So we could just be like real with each other. And there's so much love and support and just being like, oh my God, this happened today, like, so for me, that's my community. But it's no judgment towards any of the parenting styles. I think it's whatever really works. And also that changes constantly because kids go through so many phases. So yeah, for me, it's safe people.
Yeah.
What about you? You feel the same?
I think I've developed kind of a radar for people who are going to be understanding and compassionate towards mistakes and towards, my oldest is really spunky, high energy, acting out type of kid.
Me too. I have 2 of those.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've just learned that like to recognize on sight parents who are going to take that personally, blame me for it, and be unpleasant to be around, and I avoid them. The community in general, when I had my first baby, it was my husband actually really, really strongly encouraged me to connect with mothers with kids the same age, or just connect with people in general. Because, isolation is a big contributor to postpartum depression and things like that. So I went out on a limb more than would be typical for me as a 5 and as a 5 woman, and went to a couple of classes and things like that. And I'm still in touch with, 1 or 2 people from those things that really make the journey easier. But mostly it's about, like you said, finding someone with the same, not strategy of parenting, but the same vibe and attitude, like the same energy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's counterintuitive for a 5 person to be like, community and people are necessary for well-being. But they are. Like,
Definitely.
Truly. And I think you and I both know that and feel that. Even
For
with each
sure.
other. Like, I'm just the happiest person to know you and be able to text you and ask you all the things.
Likewise. Okay, I have a question. So I think we sort of touched on this, but what is it like for you interacting with a partner and children who's such different energies, types, stances, ways of existing than you?
I will say how it was in the past, how it is now, and how I'd like it to be in the future.
Perfect.
In the past, we didn't always know the Enneagram, so I didn't always understand what was happening, right? And my 2 have been, I think my son is an 8-wing 7. He is the one that I'm most sure on. We don't talk about it with them, even though he's 13. Probably handle some of it. For me personally, I'm just going to wait a bit. And if he's interested in it, great. But if not. And my daughter is either a 7, wing 8, or maybe a 4, maybe like a sexual 4. I'm leaning towards 7. I ask questions here and there. And then my husband is a 3. So when they were little, they were still that. That was the vibe. It was just, they were always great sleepers, always great eaters. But as soon as they were awake, it was like full on energy all the time. And then my husband is full on energy all the time. So he would come swoop in after me being the default parent before we kind of worked on all this stuff, right? Swoop in, me being the default parent, I was done. I was toast as soon as he got home. And then he would go do all the fun stuff, right? Like he would be the fun dad and the 3 and then I would get time alone, but totally resent that I was so different and being left out of all the fun. But I was also completely exhausted and had no words left for anybody. And then I'd try to force it sometimes, and then that didn't work. And then I'd have a cycle of just like losing my shit at everyone and being like, this is unsustainable. You all are awful. Like when they're, they're little, like nobody, like I would just like have a total breakdown. And then my husband would be like, you're right. And he would, figure it out. how it is now we have lots more language. My husband knows he's assertive. He knows my kids are assertive. I know they're assertive at the moment, and for the foreseeable future, we'll see. That gives me more permission to talk myself out of trying to force things, allowing them to go do things on their own, be future-oriented, action-oriented people with plans and structures and schedules, whilst I'm still thinking about what happened 2 weeks ago and trying to solve a problem from then and having lots of feelings about it. Like, and they're all like feeling repressed and I'm not, which is hilarious. As the 5, I'm the most feeling one out of everybody, and it's wildly unfair. So that's still a thing that we're working on, is like, guys, come on with the feelings. Like, give me a break. I'm the 5 here. Like, that's not fair. So, but yeah, I have to remind them feelings. Everybody's much more respectful of when I'm out of energy. They know what it means to be out of energy. They know what it means when I say I'm out of words or I'm done. It's a little less respected because they're in that preteen stage. So they're just generally testing boundaries, and teenagers. But my husband really respects it. And when he doesn't mean to push past boundaries, but does because he can't help it sometimes because he's a 3 and just doesn't even realize he's pushing past a boundary, I'm very firm, but it's not in the same... Well, no, sometimes it's angry because I don't like having to speak up as much. I would say half and half, if we're going to be honest. Like half the time, like get into like angry, pissed off. And then half the time I'm like, no, remember? And he's like, oh yeah. So we're at 50-50. In the future, I would love all of them to realize the benefit of being more chill and calm. I would love one of them to take up reading and just sit next to me and read a book. It's probably a fantasy, but well, we have to have hope.
I have high hopes for my middle child for that, but not the other ones.
I love that for you. I'm glad you have one.
So yeah, it's looking like I have one introvert, but she came up with a really, really, really talkative brother. So she's quite talkative and like rambunctious herself. But occasionally, like we would have people over because my husband's an extroverted sexual 8. So he would insist that we have people over. So once in a while we'd have people over and I would end up hiding in the bathroom with my now 3-year-old.
That's an excellent strategy.
Have introvert time. So, but in general, I'm in the same boat. My oldest is very extroverted. My husband's extremely extroverted. And I think my baby is extroverted. You can actually kind of tell with babies because they will want to face outwards more, smile more, like interact with strangers. They don't want you to hold them all the time. Versus an introverted baby is going to want make less eye contact with strangers and be like more facing inward and more want to be held more in general. So 3 extroverts and an introvert, possibly an introvert, at least right now. And it is a struggle. Like I'm starting to find my way a little bit now with I'll say, I'm going to listen to music right now in the car to calm down. And then when I put the music on, they're not usually talking because whenever they talk, I turn it off and they're like, stop. Why are you stopping the song? And we don't talk and listen to music at the same time. Some people do that, but we don't do that. We don't talk at the same time as each other. Some people do that, but we don't do that because I can't handle it. And I mean, I don't tell them I can't handle it. I tell them, in our family, we speak one at a time and they're starting to be capable of learning that. But it's a lot of 24/7 nervous system overwhelm for me, honestly. Especially when we travel, we love to travel. And I love to travel myself, but it's when you're traveling, everything's new. You get no breaks. They're not in school. By the end of some of our trips, I'm a pile of uselessness. I'm so burned out and so overwhelmed. And I can't think straight, with noise. So it's pretty challenging waters, I would say.
I think I love that you brought that up because I feel like that highlights the difference between me as a self-pres 5 and you as a sexual 5. The willingness to travel and embrace that chaos, knowing that you're going to be a pile at the end of sensory overwhelm and energetic depletion versus my self-pres instinct that kicks in that thinks through, I need a separate hotel room and what is the downtime going to be like and when am I going to have alone time? Because being the pile at the end is not only not great for me, but my husband is a 3. He needs it to be successful. So he needs me to be self-pres. So about my self-presness so that he can feel like the trip was a success. Right. So we're both 5s, but we're very different in that way.
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up. I actually wish I was more like you. I'm self-preservation repressed, so I don't think about those things when I really want to be thinking about those things. I'm working on the self-pres instinct a lot in these years, as of pretty recently, and that's one of the things I'd like to add because I was quite cruel to my children by the end of our last trip, which was a very long trip and a very ambitious trip. And I don't think that that's okay. And if I could imbue it with some of this practicality around where's the downtime, where's the alone time, that would be way better. One of my biggest struggles as a mom is that I'm married to an 8. 8s are the highest energy type on the Enneagram, and 5s are often described as the lowest energy type, along with 9s, or second lowest, after 9s. So he has what's seemingly infinite energy, whereas I need hours and hours of space and self-care to be functional. And he does not understand. He tries to understand, but he doesn't personally in his own body understand that. So, he's great about helping me get that space if I say, hey, I need space, with a lot of energy behind it. We've talked about this. But if I don't have the energy to even say that with energy behind it, doesn't happen. Yeah. And then we have this whole downward spiral. So I'd like to get more self-presy where I'm thinking about those things and communicating them and then having them so that the whole thing goes better.
And same with me. Sexual is my middle, but I like incorporating it more. I could do with less of the self-pres and more of the social. The social is my repressed. I've been working a lot on that as well. And I'm actually pretty proud of myself that I've been saying, I think moving across the country, sexual and social had to come up. And even just talking to you and you going on that trip is darn it. It's you only have one life. You might as well do stuff, right? So there's self-preservation is great and that's great. So maybe bake some more self-preservation into the trip. But those of us over here, we need to say yes to the trips, right? Because you want to do the fun thing and have the experience. And so I think, all the instincts, we need all 3 and just in balance if possible, which is a high thing to try to achieve and doesn't usually happen. So just grace for when it doesn't.
I'm going to use "you only have one life, you might as well do stuff" as an encouraging quote for my self-press client.
That would be a great title for a 5 book.
Yeah.
Might as well do things.
Well, I thought a nice question to end on might be this one. Melissa, what do you love most about being a mom?
Oh, you surprised me. What do I love most about being a mom? There's just actually so many things that come to mind, and I'm not lying about it. It's just hard to pick because it's specific to each kid. So can I do that? Can I say what? Okay. What I love most about being a mom to my son, who I think is an 8, is that we have a special connection in terms of not only sharing, I think, an Enneagram line, we both say it how it is. And that's so fun to have this person, this little person who's becoming a person, remind me that it's okay to say it how it is and invite me into that space. And I learn from him and he learns from me. I think he learns emotionality from me. And I learn, oh my gosh, it's like great to walk around in the world as an 8, you know, like it's great to say what you think and feel and just have like not give a fuck. Like,
Yeah.
it's so wonderful. And so I'm just so like, that's such a special thing for me as a mom to him. And obviously he's adopted, so I'm his second mom. I'm not his birth mom. And that's a privilege. And it's hard. And it's also magical, and it's all baked into one for that. So that's for him. My daughter, I feel like, so if she's a 7, I also share a line with her. And when she was little, she would just like run around like half naked in a tutu. And I felt like I was watching like my soul run around. It was like, oh, if I could just be absolutely free and not be a 5, that's how I would be too, right? Like, and so she embodies like this joyful, I mean, not at the moment, 'cause she's a preteen, bless her. But like for the most part, she's joyful, wants everybody to be happy, wants to find the most fun thing to do. And I love having fun with her. I love just doing random fun shit that she comes up with all the time. And I say no way more than she would like, but I say yes way more than I ever would have if I had never had her in my life. So it's just a privilege to be both of their moms. And that sounds so lovely. And I really, let's not sugarcoat it. There are a teen and a preteen. And there's so many hormones and it's so raw and ugh, a lot of the time.
That was moving though.
But I needed to be also real. So like, yeah.
That was really moving. You know, I say yes way more than I ever would if she wasn't in my life. No, that's really lovely.
Thank you. What about you? What do you love about being a mom?
This is one of those rare moments where I asked something and I don't have an answer. Like when I asked it, I didn't already have an answer in mind. I love the way you did yours. I might do the same thing. But what I love in general is I actually just love the cuddles. Like I'm a very physical person, which is unusual for 5s. But I love the cuddles. I love when they crawl in my lap. And, you know, sometimes it's too much and the boniness and I'm getting elbowed in the eye. And like, I don't like that. But I actually really love the cuddles. And I have really loved sleeping with them because it's like, we're asleep. It's like so lovely and sweet and they're quiet. And it's like, you know, you have a certain kind of energetic connection when you share a bed with someone. And it's like always been really lovely to cuddle and sleep with them, all 3 of them. But I want to do your idea of going one at a time because they are so different, you know. With my oldest, who's a boy, we share like a sharp mind, like an intense curiosity about things. And I love how he wants to know everything. You know, he's just like, oh my God, Mom, like what about octopuses? Like, what about, you know, killer whales? What about engineering? What about construction? You know, he wants to know everything about everything. And I do too. And I love that. You know, I love exploring things. And he's always telling me facts from various books and things that he has and that I didn't know myself. And did you know that cobras have this kind of venom? I'm like, no, I didn't. Like, now I do. That's awesome. You know, I love that. And I love, like I said, I'm teaching him to read and I'm really enjoying that. I love helping him learn. My 3-year-old, who's a girl and I think an introvert, I love that, you know, that whole people speak over us. Like we're not necessarily heard as loud, as clearly as other people. Like I really feel that with her. I feel like I really understand her. And I love, she's very earthy, like very physical. I love doing physical things like baking, you know, where she has a really good dexterity and stuff for her age. Like she can make chocolate covered strawberries herself, you know, and it's so fun to do like physical things with her and see her do them. And then my baby, who's 1, is just like the funniest, happiest, laughiest, most ticklish, cute thing. And I love hearing her laugh and like smile and just smiling and like making her laugh. She's just like such a blast. She's so fun.
I love that.
Oh,
it
really
makes me miss all the little, like when you said cuddling, I was like, I was going to say that first, but I don't. They do it a little bit with me, but yeah, that's such a sweet part of motherhood is the cuddling and the physicality of it. It's really, really nice.
I'm hoping with 3 that at least one of them will be in a like a hugging phase at all times, even when they're older, because I wouldn't want to have like no cuddles.
Mine still get in bed with me in the morning. As much like because they get ready for school earlier than I get up, like my husband does mornings. And if they're in full clothes and they just get in bed and like to snuggle, and that's like my favorite part of the day if that happens. So yeah,
that's so lovely.
And I loved your answers about all your kiddos. And yeah, see, we're awesome moms. What are you talking about? Deficiency, schmishency.
See, this is why we need this conversation.
Yeah.
Hopefully it helps people who are listening, who are moms or are thinking about becoming moms, or just these things are relevant to all relationships, I feel like.
True.
And all family dynamics.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you. This was
doing
fun
this
and lovely.
conversation.
Yeah.
This is so fun. Hopefully we can do more in the future about other topics, but I'm so happy to talk to you. And I like talking to you anyway, so just doing it and recording it is super easy and super fun.
I feel the same. This was great.
Thanks, Melissa.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, it's Josiah, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you're the type of person who likes helping others, would you do us a favor and share it with other people like you? If you found value in this conversation, they will too. I also want to give a special thanks to our community members who shared their voice with us in this episode. If anything in this conversation has resonated with you, or if you have any further thoughts or questions, I want to invite you to join our community of other people like you and continue the conversation at Enneagram5.com.